The desert did not forgive. It never had. By the time the sun cleared the jagged spine of the distant mesas, the land was already awake, breathing heat, shimmering like a living thing. The sand lay flat and endless, broken only by thorn scrub, scattered boulders, and the bleached bones of animals that had learned too late what mercy the desert lacked. A body lay face down near a dry wash. He had been dragged there. The marks were unmistakable. Long furrows cut through dust and stone, stained dark where blood had soaked in before drying black. One leg lay twisted at an angle no living man could ignore. His back was a map of cruelty. Bruises layered upon old scars, skin split where whips and rifle stocks had done their work. He was Apache. His name, if spoken by his people, would have carried history. Bloodlines. Deeds. But here, under the merciless sky, he was only another problem someone had decided to abandon. Hours earlier, the men had laughed. They were not soldiers. Not exactly. Ranch hands from the southern spread, maybe a couple of hired guns drifting through town, men who knew how to hurt without asking why. They had bound his wrists, beaten him until resistance became pointless, and argued briefly over whether to finish the job. Let the sun do it, one had said. The desert always finished the job. They cut him loose only because rope was worth money. Then they rode away, hooves kicking dust over his face like a final insult. Now silence ruled again. The Apache warrior stirred. Pain woke him in fragments. First the heat, pressing, suffocating, crawling beneath his skin. Then thirst, sharp and violent, like a blade sawing through his throat. His mouth tasted of blood and sand. Every breath scraped. He tried to push himself up. His arms trembled and collapsed. A low sound escaped his chest. Not a cry, not a plea. Something older, something stubborn. Flies gathered at the corners of his eyes and the open gash above his brow. He blinked them away, slow and deliberate. Even beaten, even broken, he would not thrash like dying prey. His thoughts drifted in and out. He remembered the canyon, the ambush, the betrayal. White men had promised trade, promised peace, promised words that meant nothing once rifles were raised. He had fought until numbers overwhelmed skill, until fists and boots replaced bullets. Now the land would take him. Above, black shapes circled. Buzzards. They knew patience. Miles away, the rancher rode alone. His name was Elias Mercer, and he had learned early that solitude was safer than trust. The land he worked sat on the edge of everything, civilization to the east, lawless territory to the west, and uneasy truces in between. His ranch was modest but hard-earned. A clapboard house, a windmill that groaned like an old man, and fences that never stayed fixed no matter how often he repaired them. Elias was not looking for trouble that morning. He was checking fence lines, counting cattle, keeping his head down like a man who wanted to live long enough to grow old. His horse, a chestnut gelding named Boone, picked its way carefully through the wash as the sun climbed. Then Boone stopped. Elias frowned and tugged lightly on the reins. Easy, boy. The horse didn't move. Boone's ears were forward, nostrils flaring. He could smell something Elias couldn't yet. Blood, fear, death. Elias shaded his eyes and scanned the desert. That was when he saw the birds. They wheeled low, lazy circles over a patch of ground not far off his usual route. Buzzards meant only one thing. And whatever lay beneath them was either already dead, or close enough to make no difference. Elias hesitated. Every sensible instinct told him to turn around. People died in the desert all the time. Drifters, thieves, Indians, men who had pushed too far and found no one willing to pull them back. Getting involved brought questions. Questions brought trouble. Trouble brought guns. He had buried enough men in his life to know when to walk away. But Boone refused to move. Damn it, Elias muttered. He nudged the horse forward, slow and cautious, one hand resting near the rifle slung across his saddle. As he drew closer, the shape resolved. A man. No, an Apache. Elias's jaw tightened. The stories flooded his mind, unbidden. Raids, scalps, burned homesteads, women screaming in the night. Whether true or exaggerated hardly mattered. Fear made its own truth on the frontier. The Apache lay unmoving. Elias circled at a distance, watching for any sign of life. His horse snorted, uneasy. Then the man's fingers twitched. Elias froze. He dismounted slowly, boots crunching softly on the sand. The heat hit him harder on foot, radiating upward like an open furnace. He kept his rifle in hand, barrel angled down but ready. He approached from the side, careful not to startle. The Apache's eyes opened, dark, focused, burning with something that hadn't been beaten out of him. They locked onto Elias. For a long moment, neither man moved. The Apache did not beg, did not plead. He did not even ask for water. His gaze said only this: "Do what you will." Elias swallowed. He had seen fear before. Rage too. But this was pride sharpened by pain. A man already prepared to die, unwilling to give his enemy the satisfaction of watching him break. "You're hurt bad," Elias said quietly, unsure why he spoke at all. The Apache's lips cracked. No answer came. Elias crouched, careful, scanning the wounds. Broken leg, cracked ribs, likely. Blood loss enough to kill a stronger man. No weapons nearby, no sign of immediate pursuit, but that meant nothing. Helping him would change everything. If word got out that Elias Mercer had taken in an Apache warrior, there would be consequences. The town would turn cold. Neighbors would stop tipping their hats. Lawmen would start asking questions they already thought they knew the answers to. And worse, if the Apache's people came looking, they wouldn't come gently. Elias stood. For a heartbeat, he considered leaving a canteen. A small mercy that cost him little. Enough water to ease the passing. That was the compromise men like him made to sleep at night. He took a step back. The Apache's eyes never left him. Something twisted in Elias's chest. An old memory, half buried. A younger version of himself. A night when no one had stopped. When help had passed by and decided it wasn't worth the risk. He cursed under his breath. "You're a fool," he told himself. Then he slung his rifle and knelt again. Gently, more gently than he would have believed possible, Elias slid an arm beneath the Apache's shoulders. The man was lighter than he looked, all muscle and bone burned lean by hardship. The Apache hissed softly as pain flared. "I know," Elias murmured. "I know." It took everything Elias had to lift him. Sweat poured down his back, his arms shaking with the effort. Boone shifted nervously but held steady as Elias maneuvered the broken body up and over the saddle. The Apache sagged against the leather horn, breath shallow. Elias mounted behind him, keeping one arm locked around the man's chest to keep him from sliding off. "Hold on," Elias said, though he wasn't sure who he was speaking to. They rode, slow, careful. Every step sent pain through the Apache's body, but he did not cry out. The desert stretched endlessly, each mile daring Elias to reconsider. By the time the ranch came into view, the sun stood high and merciless. Elias rode straight past the main house. He did not want eyes on him. Did not want questions. He took the Apache to the old storage shed by the creek bed, a place forgotten by everyone but him. There, in the shade, he eased the man down onto a blanket. The Apache's eyes fluttered. Still no words. Elias poured water into a tin cup and pressed it carefully to the man's lips. A few drops spilled. A few were swallowed. It was enough. Elias leaned back against the wall, heart hammering. He had crossed a line. Out there, in the desert, he could have walked away and lived the same quiet life he always had. But now the world would respond. Violence always echoed. Kindness did too. As the wind whispered through dry grass and the sun climbed higher, Elias Mercer understood one simple truth: night came quietly. Too quietly. Elias Mercer had learned to distrust silence on the frontier. The desert did not go still unless it was watching, waiting for something to move wrong. As dusk bled into darkness, the cicadas fell quiet and the wind thinned to a whisper that crept along the ground instead of riding above it. Inside the old storage shed, a lantern burned low. Its flame trembled each time the injured Apache drew breath. Elias sat on an upturned crate, sleeves rolled to his elbows, hands stained dark with blood that was not his own. He had cleaned wounds before. Knife cuts, bullet grazes, a broken arm once, but never like this. The Apache's body told a long story of violence. Old scars layered beneath fresh ones, burns half-healed, cuts stitched by time instead of thread. This was not a man unfamiliar with pain. Still, the beating he'd endured would have killed most. Elias dipped a cloth into a basin and wrung it out slowly. The Apache stirred as the cool fabric touched his brow, his jaw tightening, breath hitching. "Easy," Elias murmured. "You're safe. For now." The words sounded foolish the moment he said them. There was no such thing as safe out here, not for either of them. The Apache's eyes opened again, sharper now. More present. They moved. Not wildly, not in panic, but with careful calculation. He took in the shed, the lantern, the blankets, the man kneeling beside him. Elias met his gaze and did not look away. Minutes passed in silence. Finally, the Apache spoke. One word. Horse. Measured. Why? Elias exhaled slowly. He had been waiting for that question, even if he hadn't known it. "I didn't want to leave you there," he said. The Apache's eyes narrowed. "That is not an answer." Elias gave a tired half-smile. "It's the only one I've got." The Apache studied him longer, as if weighing the truth not just of the words but of the man himself. Then his gaze drifted to the rifle leaning against the wall, the door left deliberately unbarred. "You could have taken my knife," the Apache said. "I didn't see one." "There was one," he replied. "Hidden." Elias nodded. "I figured." Another pause. "You did not fear I would kill you." "I did," Elias said honestly. "Still do." That earned something like a faint, dry breath from the Apache's chest. Not quite laughter, but close. Pain crept back in waves as the night deepened. Elias reset the broken leg as carefully as he could, binding it with splints made from fence slats and torn cloth. The Apache gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his skin, but made no sound. Elias respected that. He worked until his hands shook, then worked some more. By midnight, the Apache slept. Real sleep this time, heavy and fragile. Elias sat by the door, rifle across his knees, eyes on the darkness beyond the threshold. That was when Boone snorted. Elias stiffened. The horse stood a short distance away, head raised, ears sharp. Boone was no coward. If he sensed something, it was worth listening. Elias rose slowly and stepped outside. The moon hung low and pale, casting the land in silver and shadow. Fence posts stretched like broken teeth across the plain. The wind had shifted, so had the feeling in Elias's gut. He scanned the horizon. At first, he saw nothing. Then, a movement, far off, too controlled to be animals. Shapes cresting a rise and stopping. Watching. Riders. Elias counted without meaning to. 1, 2, 5, 8. They did not approach. They did not speak. They waited. Elias returned to the shed and shut the lantern halfway, dimming the light. The Apache's eyes opened at once. "You feel them," the Apache said. "Yes, my people." Elias's mouth went dry. "How many?" "Enough." That was not reassuring. Elias leaned back against the wall, rifle in hand. "If they come here looking for trouble, they will come looking for me," the Apache interrupted. "Whether there is trouble depends on you." That stung more than Elias expected. "Depends on me how?" "You gave me water," the Apache said. "You gave me shelter. That is not nothing." Elias watched the man carefully. "And what is it?" The Apache turned his head just enough to meet Elias's eyes again. "It is a debt." The word settled heavy between them. On the frontier, debts were dangerous things. They waited. Hours passed with no sound but the wind and the distant shift of hooves against dirt. Elias did not sleep. He thought of the town, of the sheriff who pretended neutrality until it suited him not to, of neighbors who smiled until fear sharpened their faces. By dawn, Elias knew something had changed. The riders were closer now. They had moved while the darkness covered them, silent as smoke. Elias could see them clearly from the shed doorway, Apache warriors, painted and armed, sitting their horses with the calm confidence of men who did not expect resistance. No rifles were raised, no arrows nocked. They were not here to raid. They were here to witness. The Apache inside the shed pushed himself upright despite the pain. Elias moved to help, but the man waved him off. "I will speak," he said. Elias hesitated. "You can't walk." "I do not need to." With effort and dignity, the Apache rose to a kneel at the doorway, blanket draped around his shoulders. The sight of him, alive, breathing, sent a visible ripple through the warriors outside. One rider dismounted, then another. They approached slowly, weapons left behind. The leader stepped forward, a woman, older, her hair streaked with gray, her eyes sharp as cut stone. She looked first at the injured man, then at Elias. "You are on our land," she said. Elias nodded. "I know. You should be dead," she told him calmly. "That's fair." The Apache spoke then, his voice steady despite the wounds. He said words Elias did not understand, but the weight of them was unmistakable. The woman listened without interruption. When he finished, she turned back to Elias. "My son lives," she said. "Because you chose to act." Elias felt the air leave his lungs. "Your son?" "Yes." Behind her, the warriors bowed their heads. Elias swallowed. "I didn't know." "That does not matter," she replied. "Only the choice does." She stepped closer, studying him. "Men like you are rare. And dangerous." "I don't want trouble," Elias said quietly. The woman nodded. "Then you will have protection." She raised her hand. One by one, the Apache warriors placed their weapons on the ground, not in surrender, but in promise. "This ranch," she said, "will not stand alone." The sun rose higher, washing the land in gold. Elias Mercer stood at the edge of his property, a rancher no longer invisible, no longer untouched by the wider world. He had made one brave choice in the desert, and the desert had answered.